the second card won't come off. We're on the air, live. This is live television. Okay, so he's so nervous. Blam! All the cards go down on the floor. A lot of people have asked me during my life, how did you happen to break into show business? Okay, well, I had a scholarship to Stanford University from winning 3 state championships in the speech tournaments. And so it was in the summertime, and I thought, well, and before I go to Stanford in the fall, I'd just like to see if possibly I could break into show business. And my mother said, Stanley, you just don't get on a bus and break into show business. I said, I know, Mom, but I just want to see if this is possible. So my father said, well, be home before nightfall. Hollywood is a terrible place to get after dark and so forth. I said, I know, Dad, I know, I'll be home. So my mother packed me a little lunch, and I got on the bus to Hollywood. So now I'm riding down Hollywood Boulevard. This is a true story, by the way. I'm not exaggerating anything in this story. I'm riding down Hollywood Boulevard, and I'm the last person on the bus. And I see the bus driver look in the mirror, rearview mirror, and said, where do you want to get off, kid? I said, I want to get off in the middle of Hollywood. Psh, hits the brakes. I said, is this the middle of Hollywood? He said, kid, this is as middle as it gets. Doors open, I get off the elevator. Off the bus, okay? Now I'm standing on Hollywood Boulevard at the corner of Whitley and Hollywood Boulevard. There's a 3-story building there, okay? I walk in the lobby. I thought, I wonder if there possibly could be a talent agent in this building. I walk in, I see cleaners, invisible weaving, 2nd floor, Stars of Tomorrow, talent agency. I said, that's me, Stars of Tomorrow, that's me. So I get in this creaky elevator, going up to the 2nd floor. Now I walk in, Stars of Tomorrow on the door, knock on the door, walk in. Hello, Stars of Tomorrow? Now this woman comes out in a white suit with big shoulder pads, beautiful woman, and a little short guy with a cigar. He says, yes, can we help you? I said, yes, I'd like to see you about some representation. I'm 18, just haven't even been to college yet or anything. He said, well, what do you do? I said, well, I do all kind of voices. I said, what else do you want to do? I said, well, I'd like to break into radio. She said, okay, yeah, of course you want to break into radio, but have you ever considered animated cartoons? I said, never crossed my mind. What kind of voices do you do? I said, well, I do like Jimmy Durante, everybody wants to get into the act. And I do Franklin Roosevelt, FDR, yesterday, December 7th, a day that will live in infamy. And that's all, folks. He says, hold it right there. Walks into the phone, calls a man named John Burton of Warner Brothers Cartoons. Says, yes, hi. I'm bringing a talented young man over to, you have to hear him do these various voices. Yes, I know you have Mel Blanc, but Mel Blanc can't do all the voices in the world. His name is Stan Freberg. I'm coming right over. Hung up the phone. Now she walked out and she said, let's all pray. So the little short guy with a cigar and her and me all hold hands. And I thought, well, I know about this. My father's a minister, right? I thought, is this what they do every morning at the William Morris Agency? So she said, dear Lord, please help this talented young man, Stan. I said, Freberg, straightening it out for the Lord, to find his way in whatever field he wants to do, especially animated cartoons. In Jesus' name, amen, amen, amen. So now she puts me in her car, takes me to Warner Brothers Cartoons. And I walk in, and a man named John Burton, I do the same voices. He says, stop. Can you come back tomorrow and do this for some of our animation directors? Chuck Jones, who created Bugs Bunny, and Friz Freleng, who created the Pink Panther and so forth, and Bob Clampett, which is how I got involved later with Bob Clampett in Time for Beanie. And we both co-created that show. So I said, okay, yeah, fine. So I get on the bus back to Pasadena. Lie there all night long while visions of Looney Tunes danced in my head. Now I get back on the bus in the morning, come all the way back. I discovered they put a microphone behind a black screen because the animators, in the bottom of a projection room, because animators don't necessarily want to see what somebody looks like doing the voice. They just want to hear. So I was scared to death, 18 years old. So now John Burton says, okay, this is a talented young man we just discovered, gentlemen. Go ahead, Stan. So now I start to do the voices. Now, the minute they start to laugh, I know I'm okay. Finally, he comes back, takes me out, and they all applaud, okay? Bob Clampett walks up to me and says, I'm doing a cartoon about FDR's dog, Fala, and it's called My Friend Fala, and I want you to do FDR. I want the dog to talk like Franklin Roosevelt. Chuck Jones walks up, put his arms around me and said, I want you to do the baby bear and the three bears, the junior bear, did I do a good thing, Paw? Okay, anyhow. So now Friz Freeling walks up to me, the little guy, and he says, why haven't we heard of you before, Stan? I said, I don't know. I've been around, He said, oh, I didn't mean that the way it sounded. I mean, I'm sure you didn't just get off the bus. That's a true story. 3 weeks later, I'm standing next to Mel Blanc with a brand new Screen Actors Guild card in my pocket, doing the first of over 400 Warner Brothers cartoons that I did. And that's how I got started in the show. And later on, I never made it to Stanford because I started in radio and animated cartoons, and later I worked for Walt Disney. I was the voice of the Beaver and the Lady and the Tramp. After the lady dog has a muzzle put on her, the tramp dog takes her up to the zoo and asks this beaver to chew off the muzzle, and he said, he talked with a whistle in his teeth, Anyhow, I was at the mic at Walt Disney and ready to do this thing, and they said, hold it, Stan. Walt is coming down. He wants to direct you himself. So Walt Disney came down. Good morning, Stan. Good morning, Walt. And he directed me doing the Beaver. And he said he came up with the idea of Jimmy McDonald, my wonderful sound man I used on the United States of America and many things over the years. Came back and I held a little whistle in front of my mouth, and every time he did, I can't do it every time. See, the Beaver would whistle through his teeth, and that's how I did the Beaver and the Lady and the Tramp, and many other things for Disney too. Well, I guess first of all, I really mean this with all my heart, that all of my talent came from God, and God gave me whatever talents I have. I don't know how in the world I'd have all the talents I have, and I'm very blessed. So it just came naturally, when I was out in the garage talking to my guinea pigs and my rabbits, doing scripts from all the radio shows my uncle would pull out of the wastebaskets. That's where I developed all the voices and so forth. And so I was able to do, by the way, the voice of Franklin Roosevelt on a show called Destination Tomorrow on CBS with Chet Huntley. And I was the last person on radio to impersonate the voice of FDR, and he died a week later. So anyhow.
And you had to get permission.
I had to get permission from the White House, and I had to do an imitation of FDR, and it went to the White House to securities, to their, whoever the security person was, and they said, yeah, okay, he's doing a good job on the president. So then we got the okay, and we did it, If Rich Little had to do that today, I mean, forget it. Well, the people that I worked for at Warner Brothers Cartoons and Disney, they really didn't have children in mind. I mean, they made the cartoons for themselves. Chuck Jones told me, I don't care if any kids laugh at this or not. I mean, I care, but I'm really making this for myself and for adults, and that's the only proper thing. As a satirist all these years, if I can make myself laugh and I think something is funny, then I do it. I use myself as a yardstick for what's funny, and I hopefully millions of other people have thought it was funny too over the years, you know. Well, working with Mel he was a high maintenance guy. He didn't appreciate the fact of this 18-year-old kid coming in next to him, first of all, and we wouldn't let me in the mic at first, you know, big boom mic, and he'd keep me out, and a guy named Trig Brown, who was the guy that recorded us, said, "Stay in the mic, Stanley, stay in the mic." So I thought, and Mel said to me, "Yeah, stay in the mic, Stan." I thought, am I going to say anything? No, I don't know. I don't want to get fired, you know. So anyhow, finally, years later, he came to respect my talents, and he never did that again to keep me out of the microphone. And especially after he had the terrible accident and he couldn't work, they asked me to do Porky Pig because he knew I did. That's all, folks. And I said, no, I want you to wait till Mel comes back. And also, what's up, Doc? I mean, I was pretty close with Bugs Bunny too. They said, well, we have to finish a couple cartoons. I said, well, I want you to wait for Mel till he gets out of the hospital. And so Mel told me later, he really appreciated that. And his son, Noel, told me that as well. Yeah. That's a great story. So it was a great, and you know, I occasionally do a voiceover. The interesting thing now is the various agents I've had, Don Pitts is my agent right now, they want you to come and read for a part. You know, fine, if that's the way it works now. But in those days, a casting director at Walt Disney named Jack Lavin would say, Stan, can you come in? Walt has a part for you he thinks will be perfect. It's the beaver in Lady and the Tramp. Okay, now, he didn't say to me, Walt wants you to come and read for this part. No, just come out and do it. And I came out and did it. And same with Warner Brothers cartoons. They'd say, we're doing the polite gophers, you know, the two polite, after you, oh, after you, thank you, I'm sure. I did the two gophers, you know. And they wouldn't say, would you come and read for the two gophers? No, they come out and hire me. You know. Anyhow, this is a different era now, I guess. I had known Bob Clampett of course, from Warner Brothers cartoons, where I did several cartoons for him. And now he had an idea to start a puppet show, that would have a sea serpent, Cecil the sea serpent, and so forth. And so he and Dawes and I actually we were all the co-creators of what was then called Time for Beanie. Later it was changed to Beanie and Cecil. And so we thought we were just going to do the voices. So we're out in the garage in behind Clampett's house. Okay, and they said, Clampett said, we need a villain. What are we going to call the villain? So I had worked before to a guy who owned a used car lot in Glendale named Honest John, and his picture on the billboard had his you know, honest, and he had his fingers crossed. Honest John. So I thought, why don't we call the guy Dishonest John? Oh, that was a good idea. Okay, fine. So we're out in the hotel. In the hotel. Hello? Out in the garage behind Clampett's house. Okay, and Dawes and I said, where are the puppeteers? We thought we were just going to do the voices. And Clampett said to us, you're the puppeteers. I said, we're the puppeteers? So Dawes, and he handed us the puppets, and we pulled up on the puppets. I pulled on Cecil, Dishonest John. Dawes pulled on Beanie and Uncle Captain Huff and Puff. I said to Dawes, it's called on-the-job training. So anyhow, then we started to do the show. Okay, now, the heads of programming from CBS, NBC, and ABC all came to the garage. And they said, afterward, they said to Clampett, well, that certainly gives us something to think about, all right? And they all walked out, nothing. Then one day, a man named Klaus Landsberg, who is the owner and brains behind a station called KTLA in Hollywood, walked in, had a German accent. We did the whole thing for him. He applauded, said, that is terrific. "This is Friday. Could you start Monday?" That was it. And Monday we started. And that's how Time for Beanie started. Yeah. We actually invented the first teleprompter, which was the pages of script scotch taped together on a roller. But that came later because there was a man named Ralph Loretz, who was a very nervous guy, who stood under, we had our arms in the air like that. And later, Jim Henson got the whole idea of the Muppets putting up in the air because he said, I saw him interviewed one time on Good Morning America, and Diane Sawyer asked him, "Who are your influences in your life?" And he said, "Just Stan Freberg." And she said, "Anybody else?" And he thought for a minute and says, "Not that I can think of." So anyhow, Jim Henson gave me a big hug about 2 weeks before he died, unfortunately. Terrible death. If he'd only gone to the doctor in time, he'd still be with us today. But anyhow, so Ralph Loretz had everything, all the script. Clampett's great idea was to put everything on index cards. And the guy would pull the first one off and the second, because we're reading the script on the index cards down below. So all of a sudden, the second card won't come off. We're on the air, live. This is live television. Okay, so he's so nervous. Blam! All the cards go down on the floor. Okay? Now we have earphones on to Clampett talking to us in the booth. Now all we can do is ad lib, because we hear Ralph down on the floor saying 17, 27, 3. Wait a minute, I almost got it, you know. So now in the earphones we hear Clampett saying, Dawes and Stan, please stick to the script. Don't ad lib, stick to the script. We're on live, you know. So anyhow, at the end of the show, he'd come out and say, "Why did you depart from the script?" At that point, we were off the air, okay? And Ralph Loretz says, "I got all the index cards in order now." I said, "Thanks, Ralph. Forget it." So those were really the experimental days of live television. One of the many fans of Time for Beanie was the great Dr. Albert Einstein. We got a letter one day from a nuclear physicist at Caltech who said, I don't think you know this, but Dr. Albert Einstein is here on a visit from Princeton, helping Caltech develop the Jet Propulsion Lab, JPL, you know. And so one day he stood up in a meeting and said, "Gentlemen," he kept looking at his pocket watch, and he said, "Gentlemen, you will have to excuse me. It's time for Beanie and Cecil." And he walked out of the conference room, got on his famous bicycle, and rode down to an apartment that Caltech had made him on the ground floor. And that was it. He watched Time for Beanie. My gosh. So when I told this story to my wife, Hunter, she said, "Gee, Einstein was a lot smarter than we thought." Okay, I'll try not to make it such a long story, but as we got off the air every day, we would go out. It was on a street called, I can't think of the name of the street. It was right outside the Paramount Gate. And there was a restaurant called Oblath's Cafe, Oblaths, okay. So we'd sit writing with the typewriter in Oblath's Cafe until George Oblath threw us out. "Come on, I gotta close the restaurant, you guys. God, every night you're in there writing." Okay, now we went outside. So we said to Clampett, "Where are we gonna write now?" He said, "We'll write in this car." I see him trying the doors of all these various cars. Marathon Street, I think is the name of the street. So now he finds one that's open. Okay, he said, "Get in here." I said, "What? Whose car is this?" He said, "This is a guy from Warner Brothers Cartoons that I know. It's all right." So we get in the car, and he turns on the dome lights so we can see, because it's night. And we're typing with this small typewriter on our Olivetti typewriter on our lap, and typing, and this guy Bill Oberlin, who was the set director at that time, said, "Can you just tell me what the sets are for tomorrow so I can start painting the sets? I got to get home to dinner." Okay, so we'd say, "Well, there's a jungle set and a on board, the leaking Lena, the thing, and so forth. Okay, that's all I need. Okay, and he's out the door, slam, okay. And finally, we'd hear some guy go, hey, what are you doing in my car? And Clampett would say, Mel, is that you, Mel? No, I'm not Mel. I said, oh, sorry, we got the wrong car, okay. And we get out of the car and run down the street, and you hear the guy say, you turned on my dome light? You ran my battery down? So eventually, Clampett got us an actual building to write in. So it was about a block away. And so we go to this building, and there's a sign that says, this building condemned. We thought, and we called Clampett up, went back to the payphone and said, hey, this says this building condemned. Are you sure this is the right building? Yeah, I have worked it out with the people there. So just never mind about it. So, okay, we got up, and we have to put a couple of 2x4s to get up off, because it's all in blocks, you know, on wheels actually. And so we got up in the building, went up to the second floor, and we're typing the script. The day came when the whole building went like that, and Dawes and I say, earthquake, earthquake, let's get out of here. And we go to the window, and there's a Caterpillar tractor pulling the house. They're gonna move the house. And so we yelled, hey, we're writers up here. We're doing Time for Beanie. And the guy says, hey, Ed, there's people up there, for God's sake. So we said, we're writing this show, Time for Beanie. He said, I don't care what you're doing. Get out of this building. So then we got out of the building and slowly watched as our studio got slowly pulled toward Melrose Avenue. And so then eventually Clampett popped for an actual studio across the street from KTLA. Today, if you talk to somebody from the Harvard Business School, for example, and they said, what are the demographics? You know, we didn't even know what that meant in those days. What are the demographics? Okay, we've created a show that will appeal to children and adults up to Dr. Albert Einstein. You know, they call security, you know, get these guys out of here. But all I know is that's what worked. Forget demographics, whatever worked, and I don't know if today, you know, they'd have to have focus groups coming out your ears, you know. But anyhow, those were the early days of television, as I remember it. Well, Advertising Age magazine once called me the father of the funny commercial, because there was no humor in advertising before Freberg, they say, and that's right. But there was a man in San Francisco named Howard Gossage who had a client that was in trouble, and it was Contadina tomato paste, actually. And before I did television, funny television commercials, I did funny radio commercials. And so Howard called, he had a kind of endearing stammer to his voice, and he said, he was a fan of my records, you know. I said, Freberg, have you ever done any advertising? I said, no, I hate most advertising. He said, good, just the man we want. So anyhow, I had never done it. So I said, whatever I create, I don't want everybody to pick it apart. You have to put it on the air just like I write. He said, if that's your rules, that's what we'll go along with. So when I gave him a line, who puts 8 great tomatoes in that little bitty can for the Contadina Tomato Paste Company? Because they were suffering because the Hunt's Tomato Company had invaded their small tomato paste business. And so anyhow, I remember there was one commercial, I said to a man, okay, you got it straight what we want you to do? Pete O'Leary says, yeah, I think so. You want me to take the tower off the Empire State Building and put a 300-foot can of Contadina tomato paste up there? He said, that's right, in full color. I said, look, is that okay with the Empire State Building? Look, they won't, there's always somebody working on the building, they won't know the difference. Well, I don't want to be arrested, you know. You want us to get another contractor? I said, no, okay, fine. So anyhow, so now he puts up, I said, don't forget to have the can blink in, because he'd asked me to get something in about the recipes, the client, you know, in San Jose, California. I said, don't forget to have the can blink in international Morse code day and night there are many delicious uses for contadina tomato paste. He said, wait a minute, I thought you wanted to blink 8 great tomatoes in that little bitty can. I said, yeah. Which one do you want? I said, let me sleep on it, okay? Okay. That was it. That was the first humorous radio commercial ever. And so later, Ad Age magazine, I think it was, or Ad Week, asked Marty Morisi, who was the president of Contadina Tomato Paste, because all of these people on his board of directors hated it. You know, you didn't get all the recipes in. They said, why did you finally okay that and put it on the air? He said, it's a great line, because it didn't sound like normal advertising. And that's how Freberg was born and humorous advertising was born. And later on, of course, I did a lot of, you know, today the pits, tomorrow the wrinkles for the Sunsweet Prune was a television commercial. I always put myself I am the consumer I know best. So I would say, if I didn't like prunes, I assume that many other people don't like prunes. I have to just start with a negative approach, and nobody was doing this kind of thing. So that's, and so when the prune sales went up 40%, and later on they went up like 200%, when they hit 40, the Wall Street Journal did a front page story on me as raising the sale of, and it said, I remember it said, Freberg's philosophy is do what nobody else is doing, which is right. And secondly, don't take too much guff from the sponsor, you know. So anyhow, that was how I started in humorous advertising.